Welcome, fellow explorers. My name is Christian Alexanderson, and this is Hemlocks to Hellbenders, a podcast highlighting Pennsylvania's parks, forests, and great outdoors. Little Buffalo State Park is the place that kicked off my love for Pennsylvania state parks. I've told this story many times, but I'll do it quickly here right now. In 2020, my wife Abby and I were looking for something to do after brunch. The world was beginning to open up during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we didn't want to spend any more time cooped up in our house. So we went for a drive through Perry County and happened upon Little Buffalo State Park. On this beautiful day, we were treated to majestic scenery, the trees and mountains reflecting off Holman Lake. In a time of such uncertainty, it felt like heaven. Like for a moment, we were the only ones being treated to this spectacular nature. My unexpected visit to Little Buffalo that afternoon would lead me onto a journey where I would run a mile at all 121 state parks in Pennsylvania in 2021. And after 224 days, the last park in that journey was Little Buffalo. It was only fitting. That 121 in 21 challenge led me to volunteering for outdoor organizations, serving on boards and committees, speaking to groups, starting this podcast, and advocating for public lands. It all started with Little Buffalo State Park. We'll be going deep into the park on this episode, from its historic buildings and hiking opportunities to its yearly events and popular community pool. But before we do, here's the stats. Little Buffalo State Park is a 923-acre park located in Perry County. Available activities include hiking, hunting, fishing, boating, swimming, picnicking, wildlife viewing, winter activities, and overnight accommodations. A notable feature of the park is its historic buildings. The park is named after Little Buffalo Creek. It's unknown why the stream is called Little Buffalo Creek, or the adjacent ridge is called Buffalo Ridge, but local tradition holds that Buffalo inhabited the area. Nearby towns include Newport and New Bloomfield. State lands that are close by include State Game Lands 256 and 254, as well as Huckleberry Natural Area. You may enjoy the park if you enjoy participating in lots of different outdoor activities. I'm excited to welcome Jim Eckert and Mindy Wilt to the podcast. Jim is the manager, and Mindy is the educator at Little Buffalo State Park. Jim, Mindy, thanks so much for joining the program.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
How would you describe the park to someone who's never been there before?
Yeah, so of Pennsylvania's 124 state parks, we're all unique in our own state park ways, but I would say that Little Buffalo has something for everyone. We've got some of the quintessential state park features. We've got overnight camping. They use picnic areas. We have a nice mid-sized lake where you can fish or boat or kayak. We even have a place for swimming in a swimming pool. So we've got some historical assets as well. So we really have something for everyone, different accessibility levels as well. That's one of our major missions here at the state park, is to have something for everyone.
The land that became Little Buffalo State Park was occupied by American Indians for short periods of time as they migrated from the increasing European population. What do we know about how this land was used by them?
The short answer is we're not entirely sure. So I don't want to go too much into that because there's a lot of research and some varying ideas of exactly who might have named the land. But the basic rumor is that what they called Buffalo Hill, which is now what we call Middle Ridge, and then Big and Little Buffalo Creeks were named by the indigenous people who were hunting bison in this region. So that's something that I've been slowly digging at a little bit in my off-season time, as a little bit of research into who might have been here at that time. But we know different groups of people moved through the area. So exactly who named it, we're not really sure. As far as the buffalo goes, that's a really interesting topic. Were they here or not? Many scholars actually say no, but the anecdotal evidence that they were here is actually pretty extraordinary. The more digging you do into it, the more you find. So very early maps have the word buffalo in different areas, like Buffalo Ridge. Very early maps have Buffalo Creek. There's letters from George Washington and other famous people, back and forth correspondence mentioning buffalo in different areas, including in Pennsylvania. So they were definitely here. Now, we do have actual physical evidence of modern bison bones from bone caves in Pennsylvania. There's just a couple of them, but they're from probably a couple thousand years ago. So the biggest question is, when were they actually extirpated from the state? Basically, the park is named after the creek, which was named after those people.
That's exciting. The fact that more information could come out about this, and it could be coming out in the next couple decades or so. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we actually did a program on it last year. Myself and the state geologist, Rosanna Bear, we did a program called Buffalo or sorry, Bison or Not. And we basically, showed everybody the anecdotal evidence, showed everybody the physical evidence, and we kind of let them come to their own conclusions. So we're not saying for sure that they definitely were here, but the evidence is there. And it's kind of pushed us both to do a little bit of our own rabbit holes and our own digging. We've been reaching out to museums and, they've been re-exploring their collections. So it's been a really fun side project that I've been working on.
Yeah, I recently checked out the petroglyphs on the Susquehanna River, and there was some comments about how some of those looked very buffalo shaped, or some of the hoof marks looked hoof carvings looked buffalo shaped. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I've never gotten down there, but that's on my bucket list to do.
Yeah, a lot of places named Buffalo in Pennsylvania if we never had buffaloes.
Exactly.
The Little Buffalo Historic District is on the National Register of Historic Places and features a number of historic buildings such as Schoff's Mill. Can you tell us about them?
Absolutely. So the oldest structure that we have in the park is the Blue Ball Tavern. The bottom section of the building, which is the old tavern, dates back to at least the late 1770s. And one of the outbuildings dates to around the same time period. So they're very, very old structures. The tavern was in use at least in 1811. During the War of 1812, it was said to be a stopping point for riders between Carlisle and Sunbury. So it was a nice stopping point that the riders could get a spot to eat. And there was a neighboring White Ball Tavern. So they basically used a white or a blue symbol to tell the two taverns apart. And the White Ball Tavern focused on the horses and getting the riders ready. The Blue Ball Tavern focused on the food for the soldiers. So they kind of tag team to help the soldiers moving back and forth, which is pretty cool. It was also said to be the place where Perry County was laid out from Mother Cumberland County. We're not 100% sure if that's right or not, but that is the rumor. And then it was also really instrumental in communication lines during the Battle of Gettysburg during the Civil War. As again, when Harrisburg's communication lines were cut, information was actually coming through this area and possibly coming by the Blue Ball Tavern. So it has a couple very important places in our U.S. history. Another place on the grounds is the Sulphur Springs Cemetery, which is kind of one of our lesser known spots in the park. It was actually donated by Peter Koch, which had the Blue Ball Tavern, and it was given as a place to build a church and then later a cemetery. The first interments were about 1845, 1846 timeframe. And we have 3 Civil War veterans that are buried in that cemetery as well. There's about 65 known people buried in that particular cemetery. Going back in history just a little bit, we have the Juniata Iron Furnace that was just south of the park property. So a lot of park property was once furnace grounds where they used to build charcoal hearths. They harvested the trees to make charcoal. The furnace itself was on private property. It is no longer there, but you still see a lot of evidence of the furnace community, from slag along the creek to actually 2 different charcoal hearths that we have in our forest if you look hard enough. The iron furnace was about 1808 when it was established. It ran until the 1850s, and it was the iron furnace that built Schoff's Mill. So the mill, which is the only working grist mill in the state park system right now, the mill was actually built to serve the iron furnace community, the workers and the animals and such. So it was a grain mill, probably did a variety of flours, animal feeds. It did some apple cider, walnut pressing, and all kinds of stuff. So it capitalized on that community. And when the community moved out, the mill struggled for a little bit until William Schoaf bought it around the 1861 timeframe. And we think that because that was the start of the Civil War, we know that Mr. Schoaf was actually contracted by the U.S. government to make flour and cornmeal for the war effort. We think that might have helped him kind of get the milling business started in this area where it had otherwise struggled prior. So it kind of has a nice tie into the Civil War as well. And we think it might have tied to the Blue Ball Tavern as well, because the Schoeffs actually had an apple orchard on the property, and they probably supplied apple cider to the tavern. So everything's a little connected, even though it kind of has its own unique history. Then we also have our one of my favorites in the park is Way Car number 12. We just recently restored it. It was in pretty bad shape. It is a train car, and it is, as far as we know, the last surviving member of the Newport and Shermans Valley Railroad. So this was a narrow gauge railroad that ran from Newport to New Germantown, way out in the western part of the county. And initially it was just meant to haul lumber and tan bark from the western part of the county, all the wood products. And the community realized that there was a need for transportation of goods and people. So in its later years, it started hauling people. In 1911, it actually hauled white-tailed deer to restock in New Germantown, which is pretty cool, when they were restocking deer after we wiped them all out. It was hauling people, it was hauling grains, milk, goods into town. So it actually played a really crucial role in the early transportation of the county. And it ran from 1890 until about 1934.
There's so much to love about Little Buffalo that one of the things that I love most is that historic district, because it adds such an interesting dimension that's not available in every state park.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I'm working on right now in preparation for America's 250 is trying to dig a little bit more into Captain William Powers and David Watts, who were involved in the creation of the iron furnace. There's a lot of history on them, but at the park level, we don't have a lot on those individuals. So I'm trying to kind of find those Revolutionary War ties and trying to make some more programming around that for America's 250 next year.
The park has 8 miles of hiking trails. Do you have any trail recommendations?
Sure. So my go-to trail would be the Fisherman's Trail. That's located in the Schoeffs Mill area. On Main Boat Launch Road, you've got a nice paved parking lot. Fisherman's Trail is a nice flat grade. It's quite accessible. A lot of dog walking activity on that trail. As an added bonus, you can see much of the lake from that vantage point, taking in some of the wildlife that you'll see out in the park.
Yeah, I have a couple favorites. Well, I should say my least favorite is probably Middle Ridge Trail, because if you like exercise, that's a great trail. Lots of ups and downs. It's 2.5 miles long. So that's our longest trail. We don't have any, really, really long trails here. My favorite trail is Creek Trail, and you'd have to have boots on for it because there's numerous springs that are basically keep the trail pretty wet year round. But it's great for wildlife watching, and I think some of that muddiness and some of that water kind of keeps a lot of people off of it, which makes it kind of a calmer, more relaxing trail with less people and more wildlife. Depending on what you like to do, a short walk, if you have a stroller or wheelchair, our Blue Ball Tavern and Covered Bridge trails together make a really nice loop through the historic district. But we also have a story walk on the Mill Race Trail pretty much year round, where we'll have like kind of a seasonal themed story on that trail that little ones can walk along and read the story with their families.
What type of ecosystems can visitors explore here, and what kind of plants or animals might they encounter?
The park hosts a variety of habitat types, so we see a very diverse array of wildlife. We have a mix of rocky and loamy soil around the campground area that creates a unique forest floor for plants and orchids such as pink lady slipper, as well as a really neat variety of mosses and lichens. On the other side, the thick hemlock forest still hanging on from the invasive woolly adelgid allow for a really rich variety of mushrooms, especially after a rain. We have some wetlands along the creek trail that attract lots of different types of dragonflies and occasionally rare shorebirds. So a couple years ago, we had an American bittern hanging out. We see a lot of green herons. And our rarest visitor, at least since I've been here, was a common gallinule last June, which is a Florida bird. So that was pretty cool. He was here for about 3 days. The lake brings in all kinds of waterfowl types, from your shore dabbling ducks like teals and wood ducks. But we also get a lot of divers like loons, grebes. Just a couple weeks ago, we had surf scoters, which are a sea duck. That was so cool. I never saw one before in my life. We get flocks of tundra swans, occasional trumpeter swans, which are pretty cool. In the Springtime, we see warblers of all kinds. We get prairie warblers out on the power lines. We get worm-eating warblers, black-throated greens and blues, all kinds of forest warblers as well. And then we also get the hybrid Lawrence and Brewster's warblers because we kind of have that mixed habitat type. Eagles are seen year-round. Ospreys seen the majority of the season. They can be found fishing. In fact, in the springtime when they stock, you can see, a dozen or more eagles hanging around, which is pretty. And as far as birding goes, like I said, a lot of variety, but we also have a really diverse reptile and amphibian population as well. So we're one of the few places that has queen snakes, which are kind of neat, as well as some other cool turtles and things. We have soft shell turtles, which are really unique. And then, of course, we've got our typical mammals, foxes, coyotes, fishers, porcupines, occasionally bears, but most of the time the public doesn't see those. Those are usually our neighbors or our staff that, see a glimpse of a bear in the background.
I'd never even heard of that snake before. That just sounds cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a crayfish specialist. So there's only a handful kind of pockets in the state that have them. They're not endangered, but they're definitely uncommon.
The 83-acre Holman Lake offers year-round fishing opportunities. What sort of fish can you catch there?
You can catch a little bit of everything. The lake and the streams are stocked with trout. Anymore, it's mostly brown and rainbow just because of the warmer water temperatures. The lake does get occasionally stocked with both channel catfish and tiger muskie fingerlings. There are native brook trout in the stream. I've actually caught them during stream studies. Few and far between, but it is a clean enough, healthy enough stream that we do have those. The lake is also deep enough that the trout can be potentially caught year round. They tend to stick down in the depths during the warmer months. So in the warmer time, you're going to see more crappie, perch, lots of sunfish, largemouth bass, and occasional smallmouth. We do have an abundance of green sunfish and pumpkin seed, which are two of my favorites. I think they're two of the prettiest fish in our state, and we have an abundance of them in the lake as well. For like fish and boat stocking schedules, as well as the rules and regulations, you can consult the Fish and Boat website. We also generally have the little booklets or the mini guides here at the park office if you need. And we have loaner kits available too, fishing tackle loaner kits if you want to go fishing at the park.
What other sort of water activities are popular on the lake?
So we generally see a variety of different boats, non-gas powered, because it's an electric only lake, or a non-gas powered lake, I should say. We occasionally see sailboats, pontoon boats, not very often, but from time to time. It's mostly kayaks and paddle boards. Because gas powered engines are not permitted, it is a very nice, calm, flat lake for learning how to paddle. We have a boat rental that is open during the summer months when the swimming pool is open. But we do intro to paddling programs, or I should say, the educators do intro to paddling here. From time to time, we try to do about one a month in the summer season. And then we also do one moonlight paddle per month, which is more for experienced adult kayakers. And we do those from May to October.
I told you guys earlier, but I'm going to say it again just for everybody else. I fell in love with Pennsylvania state parks because I went to Little Buffalo. Me and my wife, it was right during COVID, and we were like, man, I just don't want to go home. The restaurants finally just opened, so we went out and we had like lunch outside. It felt like we were living a normal life again, and we were like, I just don't want to go back inside. I was like, oh, I think there's like a park around here. So we drove up to Perry County and then went to the park, and it was just like spectacular. Like the leaves were like reflecting off of Holman Lake, and it was just like everybody was so nice and wonderful. The weather was great, and it was one of those that like, oh man, I wonder how many state parks we have. And I was like, I don't know, probably like 50 or 60. And then when I got home and there was some internet, I was like, oh, we have so many more than that. So the fact that the place just looked so good and everybody who I met was just so wonderful really made me fall in love with the state park. So I appreciate your work that you're doing, because you're both doing, because you guys helped me discover the state park. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I didn't discover the state park system until I started working here. I was privileged enough to have some forest ground growing up that I played in. So to my family, they thought Little Buffalo was just a pool. So a lot of folks don't realize how much is here. I mean, the pool is pretty famous, but there's a lot more to us than that.
For those that want to swim, which you just brought up, you guys have a giant pool area. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. So yeah, like you said, it is quite large. It's essentially a commercial sized pool. We've got a variety of features. We have 2 water slides. We have some play features, what we like to call a spray ground. So that's a 0 entry threshold. Um, it means you can wheel right into it. We have wheelchair users that wheel right into the spray ground. It's essentially what it sounds like. It's like a giant water fountain. Water shoots up into the air, and it's a nice place to cool off without fully submerging yourself. Um, Inside the pool itself, it goes up to 4 feet. There's like a giant water mushroom that, cascades water over people. It's a really nice way to cool off on a hot summer day. Some things that I'd like to say about the pool is that DCR employs the lifeguards, so it is a guarded pool. It is cash only at the moment, so folks should come prepared or visit a local ATM before you arrive.
Little Buffalo has a variety of camping options available for those that visit. What can you tell us about the different options?
Sure. So we have a smaller campground as far as the state park system goes. We have about 50 sites. We have a variety of camping options. We have everything from your basic tenting sites with no amenities. We even have walk-in sites where you have to carry your gear a short distance into the woods to your campsite, all the way up to your roofed overnight facilities where you can have a bed, you can have a kitchen, indoor restroom facilities. So that offers different levels of comfort to many different camping experiences.
And I think you also have like an event venue there too, right? That you could rent out.
Yeah, so we call that the Little Buffalo Rec Hall. It's most people might be familiar with some of the most common activities there would be like wedding receptions are very common, graduation parties. The famous Pennsylvania Fire Hall wedding reception. It's essentially that kind of experience.
And now, let's hear from our sponsors. Join Keystone Trails Association for the Appalachian Trail History Hike Series. Hikes take place on June 6th and 27th in collaboration with America 250 PA, Cumberland County. Learn more at kta-hike.org. It's better outside, especially with a Purple Lizard map in your pack. Their award-winning cartography helps you see the big picture and explore some of the best outdoor destinations in Pennsylvania. Each map reveals trails, forests, and small towns waiting to be discovered, helping you plan, wander, and reconnect with the world around you. Discover the Pennsylvania Outdoor Recreation Map and the full collection at purplelizard.com, where outstanding maps lead to outstanding adventures. Hello, fellow explorers. This is a message from the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. You know those incredible state parks and forests Christian talks about in every episode? We're the ones making sure they stay incredible. From maintaining the trails you hike, to engaging volunteer groups who make your experience better, to supporting conservation projects that protect Pennsylvania's natural treasures while keeping these places accessible. We're behind the scenes making it happen. Whether you're planning your next waterfall hike or just dreaming about your favorite overlook, know that PPFF is working to preserve these special places for future generations of explorers. Learn more at paparksandforests.org. Looking to add some Pennsylvania charm to your space? Sister Sunflowers has you covered. Their unique stickers highlight the small local spots that make your community shine, from quirky caves to hidden gems. Perfect for your laptop, water bottle, or anywhere that needs a little hometown love. They got stickers, magnets, prints, and even a hand-drawn poster to keep track of all the Pennsylvania state parks and forests you've explored. Use code HELLBENDER15 for 15% off your first order. Support local, inspire adventure, and decorate with meaning, only at Sister Sunflowers. Hey, if you're building your summer bucket list, you've got to check out Clarion County. Don't miss Living History Week at Cook Forest State Park, a fun, immersive journey through America's past, from the French and Indian War to the Civil War, with live storytelling, music, and hands-on demos. If you're up for adventure, local outfitters can guide you on river trips or hikes, or hit the trails at your own pace and wind down with local wine and craft brews. Plan your trip, explore events, or let us help you plan your visit at discoverclarioncounty.com. Clarion County. Add it to your travel bucket list. Laurel Caverns. It's the Commonwealth's newest and first underground state park, and it's the largest cave in Pennsylvania, with more than 4 miles of passages and tours for every level of explorer. Laurel Caverns is a different kind of state park experience, one that invites you to discover Pennsylvania's Laurel Highlands from a whole new perspective. Plan your long weekend now at golaurelhighlands.com. All right, back to the show. Mindy, you brought up so many great birds before. What are the best times of year to see bird migrations at the park?
It varies, and honestly, just about any time of year, you can see really cool stuff moving through. Spring, of course, is amazing for warblers and just a variety of everything like loons and things passing through. Late winter and early spring, we see the loons and grebes and sometimes the flocks of swans. It's not uncommon to see the thousands of them moving over. Usually, smaller groups will stop at the lake, but it's still really cool to see. I was telling Jim earlier because he has not been here through a winter yet, but a harsh storm during the winter time, go out and check the lake because it often brings down birds and they'll hang out until the storm's over. So that's usually when we see some really cool stuff during that time period. In March, we see the return of our woodcocks. So we actually have a small woodcock management area over by the swimming pool area. And we do programs in March, usually on like Friday nights or Saturday nights in March, where we'll go out and we'll look for and listen for them to do their sky dances. And last year, we even introduced a woodcock paddle too, which was interesting. The weather was not very cooperative for us. But sometimes the nights in March are really warm and really conducive for the woodcocks to be singing. And I don't think we've had a single walk yet where we didn't see or hear at least one. So that's really a cool time of year. And then when we get into April and May, you can see just about anything passing through. In June, we do a bio blitz here at the park. We do that with some other state parks. We kind of compete against one another to see how many different species we can find. And June is also a really good time to record nesting bird behavior for the Pennsylvania Breeding Bird Atlas. So we've kind of been using the bio blitz last year, and in this coming year, we'll be using that in conjunction to record bird species breeding in the park as well. And then, like I said, and then fall migration starts, and we kind of get into the same thing, the warblers and all that. Although everything's quiet in the fall, so it's a little harder to see. It's a little more challenging. But we start to see waterfowl moving in usually late October into November. We start to see some really cool waterfowl moving back into the park.
Yeah, I'll get very specific. I'll say the second week of May would be my first choice for birding opportunities. The leaf out in the trees hasn't fully taken yet, so you can still crane your neck up into the treetops to look for the incoming warbler species that are returning. You've got the added bonus of some wildflowers on the forest floor. And really just the forest is coming back to life. All the bird noise starts returning. And you can kind of shake off those winter feelings and kind of embrace life returning to the forest. So uh, mark it on your calendars, second week of May, get out there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you both love the most about the park?
Oh, my favorite thing about the park, it's kind of it's maybe a corny answer, but I really would say the people. This is my first year at Little Buffalo, but I've been with the Bureau since 2016. And really the people are what keeps me coming back on a daily basis to the job. Recently at the Little Buffalo Apple Festival, just connecting with the community at large, having so many positive, energizing conversations with the community. And it really just it keeps me as an employee of the state park system kind of grounded in why I wanted to do this in the first place. And really that's part of our mission and why we're here is the people. And that is my favorite part of the job. In the times when I'm in the office, if I can escape out into the park and have those interactions with people, help them hey park ranger, because they see the uniform, we all look like rangers. They say, hey park ranger, how do I get to the pool? How do I get to the mill? And that sparks any multitudes of conversation as a launching point to tell them about what else they can do here and just to kind of facilitate their experience at the park. So that's what makes it special for me.
As a volunteer coordinator, I can definitely agree to that. We have a very, very good community around here, and it's a tight-knit community as well, of locals and our volunteers that are really passionate about this area and the park, and helping. So we thank our volunteers a lot. They do so much for us here at the park. And there's not a ton of them, but the ones that are here and doing work on a daily basis or, on a weekly basis, they're absolutely invaluable to us. One of my favorite things about the park, I agree with the people, but I also love its rich, diverse history, and its diverse ecosystems too. In case if you couldn't tell by my other answers, I really like all the different birds and reptiles and trees and things that are here, because I have a wildlife background. So that's one of my passions. And then my more recent passion is history. I did not like history growing up, but as I started working here and operating the mill, and kind of living history and making those local connections is so fascinating to me, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I joke that now that I turned 40, I just have to start caring a lot more about history. All my books are 1776 and Daniel Boone and this Civil War and Whiskey Rebellion. And it's just like I go down and I tell my wife about what I'm reading, and she's just like, "Well, that sounds great. That sounds fine."
Maybe it was after I turned 30, it just all started. I don't know. But I really think the mill got me into it because I remember sitting up at night thinking, can I do that? Is that really what I want to do? And am I able to do that? I don't know anything about history. How do I talk it every day? But I absolutely fell in love with the mill, the history of, the family and the surrounding area. And I'm always learning more. In fact, someone just came in today and told me some new information about the furnace. So I was trying to reach out to people to see if I could confirm its accuracy. And it's always interesting to talk to the locals, and I'm constantly learning more about this area.
Is there something everyone should experience when they visit?
Absolutely, a mill tour. I'm a little biased in that, but like I said before, we currently have the only working grist mill in the state park system. There's a couple other mills that are just functionally down right now, but it is a very unique experience. There's not many grist mills left in the world to be able to go and see. So to be able to have one here that's free to come and tour on the weekends, from like May to October, you have a lot of chances to come out and see it. And we do occasionally do private groups and school groups and things like that for tours as well.
If a visitor has a full weekend to explore the park, what would you recommend they do?
A full weekend at the park. So I would recommend, really, like I said earlier, the things that make Little Buffalo special are those quintessential state park experiences. So if you're here for a weekend, hopefully you're camping with us at the campground, here with your loved ones or alone, just communing at that fire at night, having that experience, hopefully making some s'mores or marshmallows over the fire. Once daytime rolls around, hit a hiking trail. Again, depending on your accessibility levels, we have different accessible trails or more advanced trails. So hit a trail, get out there in the forest, experience some of that forest bathing, hear the bird noises, see some wildlife. Um, I think water is life after all. Get out onto the water, rent a kayak at our kayak rental, experience that commune with water. Uh, those are really some of the highlights that I can think of. Those really just quintessential state park experiences.
Now, let's say a visitor only has like a couple hours to explore the park. What should they see?
In my opinion, it depends on if you prefer to learn a little bit of history or if you're more interested in wildlife. Because we have a little bit of everything. If you're interested in history, take a walk on the Blue Ball Tavern Trail, the Covered Bridge Trail. We have some waysides that you can read about those structures and learn a little bit. We also have a booklet called The Little Buffalo Quest that you can pick up at the park office. And it's just a little poem that one of the staff members made many, many years ago that you can kind of walk through and answer questions, to learn a little bit about the history of the valley. If you're more interested in wildlife, I would say probably parking in the west area somewhere, walking along the creek trail, and just seeing a little bit of the different ecosystems in the area.
Are there any lesser known spots or activities in the park you'd recommend for maybe returning visitors looking for something new?
Sure. So something that's kind of a hidden gem in the park is the Sulphur Springs Cemetery. It's you're driving along Little Buffalo Road. It's really easy to just drive by and not notice it. But if you can get out of your car and check out the cemetery and really, read those headstones and see the dates of the folks that were living here, and it grounds you in that history a little bit more, seeing real people's names and their lives really before your eyes, and that's a really grounded feeling of seeing their place in history, and then you're here in the present day looking back on it.
Yeah, we also do a variety of different programs throughout the year. So tagging off of the cemetery, and Memorial Day weekend, every Memorial Day, I do a program that my predecessor started. It's War Stories from the Cemetery. And it's basically a talk about how Memorial Day got started, which was in Boalsburg, Pennsylvania. And the talk about the Civil War and how it affected not only this area, but the entire United States. But we kind of make it a little more personal by visiting the cemetery and visiting those three soldiers that are buried there. And my predecessor did a lot of research on where those individuals' units were stationed and what their experience was likely like during the war. So even though we don't have letters from them, we don't know exactly what they experienced, we can kind of go through and talk about the battles that they might have been a part of and whether or not they made it out of the war or not. So it's a nice program that I try to do just once a year, kind of as a special program. But we also do a lot of other completely random environmental and history programs throughout the year as well. So staying with us on social media like Facebook or the DCNR calendar of events, you can see some of these unique programs that might only happen once a year. And we'll keep we have different stuff all year round. So coming up in the winter time, I usually get some special guests come in and we do some programs, especially late winter when everyone's got cabin fever and they want to get out and do something. We usually have really good, program success with those unique talks and maple sugaring programs in February and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm always following you guys on Facebook to see what programs come up. I want to do that moon float forever now, but I just can't seem to ever get my schedule appropriately tagged on to where I can always remember. But are there any environmental education events that you really enjoy doing, Mindy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love trees, and unfortunately, I don't usually get a whole lot of people for tree identification walks, but I love to talk trees. I love to talk forest management. I love reptiles and amphibians, which a lot of people do love that, so I usually get really good program attendance on those. We've worked with local falconer to do birds of prey talks and talk about raptor conservation. Stream studies are always a hit where we get into the stream, we look at the macros and we talk about how they impact or how they show impacts in stream quality. I do fossil hunts. We have a fossil pit at the park that's a little lesser known, but we do programs there where we talk about Pennsylvania fossils. You know, crinoids and shells and things like that. Nothing too spectacular. But yeah, programs vary from month to month. In June, July, I'm doing like dragonflies and pollinators, butterflies, things like that. In the fall, I'm mostly focused on the Apple Festival and some of the other events, but we'll do some walks and hikes and things like that as well. So it just varies from year to year and even from month to month.
Well, I love a tree ID hike, so I promise I'll go on one next time I see you schedule one.
All right, sounds good.
I don't know anything. And most people that hike with me, they go, "Oh, you know a lot about the outdoors," and then they'll point to a tree. I'm like, I don't know. It has needles, perhaps, and like that's a maple. I'm like, all right, I have no idea then. So I'm trying to take these ID hikes and these classes just to learn a little bit more because unfortunately, people assume because I do a podcast about them, I know everything. But the whole point of the podcast is I don't know anything, so I interview people that do. So
Yeah.
yeah, got to up the knowledge a little bit.
Well, I get that because we're expected to be masters of everything too, and we'll all admit we do not know everything. Some of us specialize in, a little bit more in depth in some subjects than others. And what's nice about our position is we can, we don't have to do tree programs. If we don't do trees, we're not forced to do tree programs. But if we like them and we want to do them, so it makes it nice because all these different parks will have different programs based on what their educator is interested in and what they're, able to convey. Now we have a theme for our park that we have to follow and kind of, get the idea of for ours, it's water in the Little Buffalo Valley. So we talk a lot about the history and how water was important for the mill and the local community. And, we do kayaking programs and water recreation and things like that. But we have a lot of flexibility in programming. And that's why I will get a lot of guest speakers come in throughout the year to cover those topics that I'm not quite as comfortable with, like foraging and mushrooms and things like that.
Yeah, you don't want to guess with mushroom foraging.
No.
This one looks pretty good, probably. It's like, no, we want somebody who definitely knows those things.
Exactly. And I try to steer clear of that because even with experts, different people react differently to those sorts of things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's probably something that not a lot of people should get into unless you really know what you're doing.
Well, you mentioned the park is also host to a number of special events like the Apple Festival and Light Up Little Buffalo, both of which I've been to and I absolutely love and I totally recommend to everybody. What will visitors see if they attend those festivals?
So the Apple Festival is our education focused festival with historic demonstrators as well as environmental themed activities. So we have live folk music, we have some food and craft vendors, not a lot, but just a couple to keep things interesting and bring some folks in. We have hands-on crafts and games for basically all ages and kind of all interests. It's the only time of year that we grind corn with the mill at this point. So we also press apple cider with the mill and we do an apple butter boil as well. We have different historical demonstrators from year to year, but you'll see things like our blacksmith. This year we had a pottery maker, we had a spinner and a weaver. In the past, we've had things like broom making, glass blowing. So we try to keep things different and get some different folks in each year to keep things interesting and make the festival a little bit different every year. Um, the this year the kids and adults both really enjoyed the butter making. Unfortunately, we ran out of cream the first day. So all day Saturday we had folks walking around making butter with the little containers and their cream. And on Sunday we focused on the ice cream. We did homemade ice cream both days. So we actually had kids hand cranking the ice cream maker and making homemade ice cream, which was a lot of fun. The Apple Festival is held the third weekend in October every year, and it often gets confused with another event that we have the first Saturday in October, and that is the Art Festival. Both of those festivals have been going on for over 44 years now. So they're both very old festivals, basically the start of the park almost. But the art festival is much more focused on music, poetry, and then lots of arts and craft vendors. Whereas the Apple Festival is a little more focused on environmental and historical education.
And what about Light Up Little Buffalo?
So Light Up Little Buffalo is our largest attendance event, not single day, but it is a 7-day event that occurs December 17th to the 23rd. We usually see a couple thousand people through the week-long trail, and it depends on the weather. If the weather's good, we have much higher attendance, of course. But basically, we decorate the entire covered bridge trail, including the bridge itself, the mill, the pavilion, the stage, the train car. We open the train car now that it's renovated with lights and displays inside. And then we have local choirs and choruses from our high schools and middle schools come out and sing on the stage most of the nights. Last few years, we've gotten a food truck as well for each night so that there's some kind of a hot meal available for folks. And then our local 4-H also sells cookies and hot chocolate every year too. So children and pets are welcome to come to the event. Obviously, we ask pets to be leashed and restrained and friendly, of course, but they're welcome to come and see Santa. You can see Santa for free, get a photo with Santa, and then we also get generously donated from the public stuffed animals that we will hand out to children that come and visit Santa. So that is entirely donated by the public. We don't buy any of the materials or anything from that. These events are both entirely free and they're funded through the Friends Group, which helps with projects, festivals, and special events in the park. So we're always happily accepting donations to the Friends Group and as well donations such as, stuffed animals for Christmas trail and lights and things like that we use for the event. No part of these events is funded by the state, like the park itself. It's all funded through the community and the Friends Group.
Light Up Little Buffalo is probably my favorite event in a state park I've ever been to. It is, I mean, thousands. I mean, it's a lot of people attend, and it's so spectacular. Like, you might have heard her describe like, oh yeah, they like put lights up. I mean, there are a lot of lights, a lot of like cutouts, and really interesting, fun, different ways to celebrate the season. It's if not one, number two thing I look forward to every year. Harry Hand over at Pine Grove Furnace, I absolutely love. But Light Up Little Buffalo is just so cool because I haven't seen anybody else do it the way that you guys do it. So
It is unique, especially with the wooden cutouts, because when I first came, I was a seasonal ranger when I first started here, so I did not really see Christmas Trail until I actually started working as the educator, and I was pretty much thrown into doing it. And I was shocked by the wooden cutouts, and some of them were really rough shape, and they were, older and kind of cheesy. And so we did phase some of those out, but a lot of the really old ones, I just have a volunteer that's helping me restore a lot of them. And a lot of the older ones we've kept on to because we kind of want to hold on to that nostalgic, parents and grandparents come back with their kids and they're like, yeah, that cutout's been here for 30 years, and they see the same one year after year. And a lot of people don't like the change. They don't want too much updated. So we kind of keep a lot of the things the same. But we've added some new cutouts and new cartoons. So Bluey was our latest addition, and we also had a scout that did some really amazing Pennsylvania wild animals, so white-tailed deer, a bear, a grouse, and a couple others. So we wanted to maintain the environmental education component with the wild birds and the wildlife, but we also wanted to stick to a little bit of that nostalgic cartoon character and famous character thing as well.
Do you have any tips for people who plan on visiting the park, or any suggestions to make their visit as enjoyable as possible?
I always tell people, please look at a map before you go, and don't be afraid to give us a call and ask questions. We try to get to the Facebook messages pretty quickly, but it's pretty much just him and I on the Facebook page. So we don't always get to that as quickly as you might want us to. So if you have a question that you need an immediate response to, give the office a call. Right now we're in the off season, so there might not be anybody answering the phone readily, but if you leave a message, the rangers or somebody in the office can sometimes get back to you fairly quickly. We are also a very pet-friendly park. We love our dog visitors, but we ask, please, please, please keep them on a leash year-round. The only exception is in the hunting areas when you're actively hunting with your dog and training with your dog. But if you're just here walking the trails and visiting, please keep your dogs on a leash so that we can maintain a friendly environment for all people walking and all pet owners. And don't be afraid to stop by and say hello at the office with your furry loved ones, because we like to see them.
How about internet, GPS, cell signal?
We have pretty good cell signal and GPS here. You don't usually have to worry about losing GPS signal. There's a couple places, like on your way up to the campground, cell phone coverage can be a little spotty depending on your carrier. We do not have Wi-Fi up at the campground or anything like that. So if you're looking to come and hang out on your Wi-Fi the whole weekend, you're kind of out of luck. But for the most part, you have pretty decent reception throughout the park, just some little areas of no service.
Well, thanks so much for talking to us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank my guests Jim Eckert and Minnie Will for joining the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Meta for more information about upcoming episodes. You can support the podcast by buying merch at hemlockstohellbenders.com, or you can click support this show in the podcast description to provide a monthly donation. This has been Hemlocks to Hellbenders. I'll see you out there. Hosting, production, and editing by Christian Alexanderson. Music by John Sauer. Graphics by Matt Davis.